It will try to deliver at least once, but there is no order. It will try to deliver in order manner only, but there is no guarantee for order. Okay. So the second one is FIFO-Q, first in, first out. Okay. So here, whatever message comes, it will maintain the message priority. Okay, this comes first, this came second, this came third. So, and every message delivered once with that priority only. That is a mechanism. So for that, the question is a table reservation system, which queue or which service you are going to use. So FIFO-Q, SQS FIFO-Q is the answer for that question. That is one. And second one, another example for this SQS is, you remember auto scaling group, right? So in auto scaling group, what we can do? We are going to launch an EC2 instance, and we are going to mention if CPU utilization of this EC2 instance is very, very high, the CPU utilization is very, very high. So then you add one more EC2 instance and all. Now, these all things you configured in auto scaling group. Auto scaling group will go and continuously check your EC2 instance status, right? It will continuously go, okay, what is the CPU utilization? It will wait for some time. Again, it will go and ask what is the CPU utilization. And that instance also need to give response. If it is not giving response, auto scaling group will create another instance. Okay, so it is sending a message, it is expecting a response. Technically, it is a poll-based messaging service. First thing. Here, how the messages are sending, how messages are receiving. For this purpose, we are going to use SQS service. Okay, so backend, we are going to use SQS. That is another example for SQS. And the another certification question. So you have a video streaming application. You have some free customers and some paid customers. For free customers, less priority. For paid customers, you want to give more priority. So how you are going to segregate these users is a question. At application level, how you are going to segregate? Simply create a queue for free customers, send all their requests through that queue. Okay, so put all paid customers in a dedicated queue, make prioritize for that specific queue. So that is another certification question. So let's go to SQS, navigate to SQS. Here, click on create queue and standard queue or FIFO queue. First in, first out, and the standard one. At least once, best efforting order, but there is no guarantee. Exactly once it is processed within the guarantee, there is a guarantee for priority. So you give a name and you need to configure these visibility settings. So once message in the queue, for how many days we can view it, the timeout value and all we can configure. Within how many days we can get that back, message retention period. If you want to give any delivery delay, delay, right? So you can configure that message receiving wait time, maximum message size. So 256 is the maximum message size. Okay. And again, AWS is going to give 1 million requests under free tier limitation. So how many days you are going to use AWS? Those many days it is free. Basically, this is AWS first service. AWS first service is SQS. Before S3, before EC2, they developed this. You remember Chris Pinkpan and Benjamin Black? They designed this and they proposed, they've written some white papers, how we can sell this service to another organizations and all. So that service is SQS. Right. So you want to enable encryption policy and all, then create a queue. Pretty straightforward. And if any message is in queue, it is not received by any receiver, we can send all that messages to another queue. Technically, we call that as a DLQ, dead letter queue. Okay. So we are discussing a lot of unnecessary things, but you need to know at least the basic terminology and all. So don't worry about much about this also, unless if you are planning to write developer certification exam. So whatever the questions I talked, right, that is for developer certification exam. Okay. And message, maximum message size is 256 KB. If your message size is 256 KB, AWS will calculate it as a 4 requests. One request is 64 KB. Technically, we call it as a chunk. One chunk is equal to 64 KB. So if your message size is 100 KB, AWS calculate it as a 2 chunks. So that means 2 requests. We are going to get 1 million requests out of that based on 64 KB is equivalent to 1. If your message is 256 KB, that means 4 requests. That is backend calculation how AWS will do. And it's free. It won't cost you anything. So just know what exactly that service is. Right. So then we have another service called SCS that earlier we used to discuss, but nowadays it is not a certification topic, not a real time also, very less. Okay. So only some companies or universities, they are using SCS. So basically, now just observe this thing. I'm logging to my email ID and I'm going to compose an email to myself. I'm giving my own email ID. You see here. I'm giving test email and I'm going to send it. You see here what it is showing? Me. So why? Because I'm sending an email to myself. So that's the reason it is showing as me. And I'm sending from Gmail only. Now, if you provide permissions to AWS to send emails on behalf of your email, AWS will send emails on behalf of us. For example, you have a domain name. You can register the domain name. You can send emails on behalf of the domain name. Okay. Now, I will do one thing. I'll navigate to SCS, simple email service. Here, I'm going to verify the identity. Let me delete this. So now I'm going to verify identity. Click on create identity. It's an email address. I'm giving my email ID. Then create identity. Now what happened? Immediately we will get an email to this email. You see here, email address verification request. If I click on this link, that means I'm giving authorization to AWS to send emails on behalf of my email ID. Okay. So I clicked on that and it is success. Now let me send a test message. So here I'm selecting it. I'm sending a test email. Okay. So scenario just subject test message, test email. Okay, go with the custom. Send test email. Now what happened? An email is triggered. You see here from where I have sent that email? From AWS console. Successfully send a test email. But in AWS console, what it is showing as? It's showing same as the previous one, right? But from where I have sent this? From AWS I have sent. So similar way, you can give authorization to AWS to send emails. Now, whatever email you're getting from Naresh IT, online training at the rate nareshit.com, they are using SCS service. They are using SCS, new batch notifications and all. So they are using, there is another third-party software called Sendy Pro. Okay. So there is a Easy Sendy Pro. So this Easy Sendy is integrated with AWS. Okay. So we are simply creating a template. We are simply creating a template and sending n number of the emails. You see here, Amazon S3, email service providers. So we can, right, we can use this service providers, they're using this, and all Naresh IT basically is using this. And I configured that. Okay. So that is a SCS. Similar way, you can verify your domain name also. Click on create identity. There is a domain. So my domain name is learnaws.co.in, right? So then click on create identity. Now what happened to prove the ownership? I cannot simply give google.com, right? Whatever domain I'm giving, I need to prove ownership on that. So these records I need to create in Route 53. So the record type should be CNAME, record name should be this, value should be this. There is a button directly to create. Now they changed it. Verification pending. So once we create, right? So similar way, you can give admin@learnaws.co.in. So you can send it. So we can ask Amazon to send emails on behalf of us. Okay. And if you want to send bulk emails and all, okay, it is verified. You see here, it created record in Route 53. Earlier, we manually need to click on create record, but now they automated it. Send test email. Okay. I'm giving admin@my domain. Custom scenario to which email you are sending. I'm giving my own email ID. Subject test domain, test from SCS. Basically, Bits Pilani uses this. And if you book any tickets in, like, this Redbus, so the PDF and all generates, right? So the emails and all triggers from SCS. So now we should receive an email. You see here, admin@learnaws.co.in. It is a test from SCS. We can configure receivings also for this SCS. For bulk, we can use another service called Amazon Pinpoint. Okay. Don't worry much about that. There is a service. This is a thing possible with AWS. My purpose to discuss that service is it is possible to send bulk SMS, bulk emails with the help of SES service. Clear with that? Okay. Now, let's start with another AWS service called Lambda. This is a bit important and interesting one. So far, all are dry topics, right? Okay. So when coming to this Lambda, so basically Amazon Lambda is a serverless one. If you want to deliver your application with EC2 instance, what is the process? You take EC2 instance, you connect it, you perform the configuration like Apache or Nginx or any web server configuration or middleware configurations you do. So then whatever the code your developers written, take that code, put that code into the server, then your application is going to deliver. On top of that, you add load balancer. So then your application is accessible to outside world. If any code modification happened, you need to deploy it again and that will deliver. The changes will deliver. Now, you have taken very small configuration and you're trying to deliver. So the server is not responding properly. Okay. So that is one scenario. You definitely need to upgrade that server and all. That is one scenario. Second scenario is sometimes no one is accessing your application, but still you need to pay for your EC2 instance hours, right? You're delivering your application. You don't want to stop that server. You still want to deliver that, but no one is using it now. Unnecessarily, you need to pay some amount to AWS, right? If it is Lambda, so the thing is, first of all, you don't need to maintain a server. These all things with EC2. When coming to Lambda, no server. AWS manages the underlying instances for us. Again, serverless, In backend, we have servers. But who manages the servers? AWS manages the server. You no need to worry about the scaling, OS patches, connectivity to the servers, nothing. Okay, so create a Lambda function. Whatever the code your developers prepared, take that code, zip it and deploy it in Lambda. And AWS will run that code without the server's help. Without the server's help, it is going to run. So what we need to configure, whatever Lambda we are creating, we need to define how much memory you want to give to run that Lambda function. 4 GB memory, 5 GB memory, the maximum 10 GB. We can define that memory to just to run the code. No OS settings, no dependencies, nothing. Okay, so that is a Lambda main purpose. Okay, that is just one use case. Another use case is like you want to automate something in your AWS environment. For example, you want to start some instances at a time, at a specific time. You want to stop some instances at a specific time. So you can do that by programmatically, by writing a Python code or Node.js code. You can do that. So whenever you are taking this Lambda, it supports 6 programming languages. Okay. So we must know one of the supported programming language. As a AWS operations guy, what we will do? We are going to create a Lambda function. We will manage the permissions. We will provide required permission to dev team to deploy it. They are going to prepare the package. They will upload the package. Okay. We are responsible for permissions, right? IAM permissions, accessing another resources from that Lambda and all those, all our responsibility. But we are not going to write anything, right? So again, it depends on organization, which programming language your organization is going to use. It supports Python, Node.js, Go language. It supports Ruby. It supports .NET Core. Okay. And Java. So it supports 6 programming languages. So based on your requirement or your organization resources, what resource they have, we need to pick that. We need to create a Lambda function. We need to write the function in that. Then we can. Some common things are to give an overview about this Lambda, I'm going to take some scenarios to explain it. The first, let's navigate to Lambda. So navigate to Lambda. Here we have create function. Click on create function. Click on create function. The first one is author from scratch. Author from scratch. Okay. So we can choose the runtime. As I told you, .NET Core, Go language, Java, Node.js, Python, Ruby. Okay. So based on our requirement, we can. So if you take my project alone itself, we are using Node.js, Java 11 and Python. And do I know all the 3? No. There is a team who works on that, who prepares that. My responsibility, create a function, deploying it, managing the permissions and all. Okay. So select the required one, then scroll down, create a function. You will get an IDE within the browser. Start writing your code. That is the first option. And instead of that, I'm going to show this use a blueprint. First, let's go with the blueprint. So the code AWS will provide. AWS will provide the code. So the function I'm going to take here is canary function. Canary function purpose is whatever website URL you give, it will open that website. For example, I'm giving https://www.google.com. It opens that URL. It looks for the string. For example, I'm trying to find a string called Gmail. Is any matches happen? One by one is matching. For example, within this website, if this website is down, it is going to give some error, right? Within that error, are we going to get this Gmail and or no? A custom error, temporarily out of service, 504, timed out, such type of errors we will get. So the canary function purpose is whatever website you are giving, it will open that website, it will look for the string. For example, India is matching here. It will look for the string. Okay. So then if it is matching, then fine. If it is not matching, technically we can treat that website as a down. That is what canary function will do. So for that, there is a small Python code. So go here, search for canary, schedule a periodical check of any URL. That is a canary function. So select it. Now, what is a function name? My website test. So basically, whenever we are creating a Lambda function, it will create a role. Okay, IAM role. What permissions that IAM role contains? It contains just logs permission. Whenever we are running this Lambda function, it will get some logs, it will prepare some logs. Those logs are going to store in a CloudWatch logs group. That permission only we will get. If you want to add additional permissions, whatever the role it is creating, you add more policies or you create a new one, you modify it. Okay. So I'm going to create a new role with basic Lambda permissions. Now, okay, so you are going to give a URL. We are going to verify that URL periodically. How frequently you want to verify that? For every 5 minutes, for every 30 minutes, for every 1 minute. So to verify that there is a schedule, right? For every 5 minutes, I want to check. So you remember Event Bridge. Event Bridge, scheduled process and event driven processes we can configure. So here we can create a rule. If something happened, you check. Okay. Or else periodically you check. So you are using this event bridge to check website periodically. So click on create a new rule, give the rule name. Okay. For example, I'm calling it as a 5 minutes rule. Now, scheduled expression or event pattern. For example, if something happened to EC2 instance and if an EC2 instance is down, if an EC2 instance is add instance ID, give the instance ID here. If this instance is down, then immediately this Lambda function will run and will check whether website is healthy or not. Okay, that is one thing. Otherwise, I don't want to depend on event. Simply, I want to go with the rate. For every 5 minutes, it will go and check. So if you want to trigger it periodically, you can add it. For example, I don't want to add this trigger. I manually want to test it, then remove it. You can later also, you can add it. So then I told you there is a small Python code, right? This is the Python code. What this Python code, basically it is taking some request URL open and all. These packages required. So it is going to load that packages. Whatever URL you are passing through environment variable, it takes that, it verifies and it gives the output. So currently it is verifying Amazon.com. But what I want to do, I want to verify www.google.com. And I want to look for a string called Gmail. The site is this, expected is Gmail. So this, it's already defined here as an environment variable. Site means this is a site. What is the string expected? It's a expected. Okay, it's already defined. So then click on create function. So if you want to modify that Python code, you can, if you know Python. Okay. Okay. So the Python, the Lambda function successfully created. So these are settings and all. Now I want to test it. I want to open google.com and I want to verify it. So for that, here is a test option, or you can go to test button here. Create a test event, click on test. Don't mention anything, just click on test. You see here, execution result is succeeded. Whenever we scroll down, these are the logs. Now we have some code. The code is running to perform the required activity. So to run that code, how much time it is taken, how much memory it is taken, and how much memory is configured, those information you can find. You see here, to run that code, it took 499.19 milliseconds. So we are going to get charged round off to 500 millisecond. That is cost. To run this code, it took that much time, and 500 milliseconds is a cost. And memory size we configured is 128 MB. But how much memory it is used to run that code? 39 MB is it is used out of 128 MB. I configured 128, but I'm going to get charged only 39. Why? Because that is what actually we have used. Okay, that is true pay as you go method. And now if no one is accessing this function, nothing, no cost, nothing at all. If I'm accessing more, this duration is the first thing, and memory, used memory is the second thing we are going to get charged. Simply you can give 10 GB, but how much actually utilized, you will get charged for that only. That is a mechanism of Lambda. Okay, that is first example. Second example, again, if you want to modify this, for example, you want to modify this code. So currently, the test output it is showing output as a check passed, right? I decided to change that. Instead of check passed, I want to give a different string, just go here. Instead of check passed, I'm just changing opened URL and string is matching. I did some changes not deployed. Click on deploy. These changes are taking effect now. If I go and if I test this, if I go and if I test this, again Lambda function is running. This time you see opened URL and string is matching. So you change code, that will take effect. So no need to no EC2 instance really required. Okay. So that is a Lambda purpose. And as I told you, how many times you are going to run, right? For troubleshooting purpose and all. So we can, we are going to get a CloudWatch log group. So where you can find that, go to monitoring, go to logs. Okay, here it will show the logs. Oh, just click on view logs in CloudWatch. Click on that. You see here 2 log streams got created. Select the first one. So same information, how many times you are triggering, that you will find it here. So if you are getting any error, you can refer to the logs and you can fix the issue. Okay, that is one example for Lambda function. Now, some common interview questions on, or some common task we do. So the first thing is that in interview you can expect, okay, do you have experience with Lambda? Don't say no. Don't say no. You mention yes. I create Lambda function. I manage permissions. Okay. So if required, I'm going to modify the Lambda function properties and all. Right. And also mention sometimes we will get request to run Lambda function within the VPC. So I'll modify. I'll create a security group. I'll modify Lambda function and I'll deploy those changes. Okay. Apart from writing the code, you can talk anything. So there is a dev team They provide the package. Okay. Apart from that package, everything I manage about Lambda function. Setting timeout, setting environment variables, running within the VPC, increasing the timeout values, increasing the configuration of Lambda function. These all we manage. And who need to access which Lambda function also, we will manage that. Okay. So for example, a user one need to access only specific Lambda function. We are going to configure that with the help of IAM. IAM policies, we create policies and we do. Even if you ask me also, same thing. Okay, even that is what I do, even in my project also. Right. So that is common thing. Now, when coming to that, how we can increase the configuration of this Lambda function? Currently, we have configured 128 MB. I decided to increase it. So go to configuration. Currently, it is 128 MB and timeout value is 10 seconds. Click on edit. I'm going to increase this timeout to 30 seconds. And also, I'm going to increase this memory to 512 MB. Scroll down, save. That's it. On the go, it will take effect. It's modified. 512 MB, 30 seconds is a timeout. This is the first thing. Second thing, first interview purpose, we are talking about this. Second thing, so can we trigger Lambda function periodically? If yes, how we can trigger? So your answer should be, we can integrate this Lambda with Event Bridge. In Event Bridge, we have event-driven processes and scheduled processes. If I want to trigger Lambda function every day at a specific time, or for a periodical, like, for every 5 minutes or for every 1 hour or for every 30 minutes, we can configure the scheduled process. And also, there is another option in Cloud Event Bridge only. So that is an event-driven process. The event-driven process means when something happen on any of the resource, we can trigger this Lambda function. Okay, so your answer should be that. And in my project, we are using a scenario where if any file is uploaded, there is a report. If that report is uploaded to an S3 bucket, Lambda function is going to trigger. It will take that file. It is going to put it into a location, SFTP location. So how we are achieving it? By using some Python code. But when that is triggering, if no one uploads any file to S3 bucket, this Lambda don't run. So here the trigger is put object to S3 bucket. That triggers the Lambda function. This thing we can do from here or from S3 also we can do that. So go to S3. Go to S3. You remember events? Event notifications or events on our S3 bucket. Go to properties. Scroll down. Somewhere here you can find event notification. Create event notification. What is an event? What is an event type? So here, for the example I told, whenever any object is uploaded, that is nothing but put operation. Then what we are doing? We are triggering a Lambda function. So enter a Lambda function ARN or choose a Lambda function. Then click on Save Changes. Now what happened? If any object uploads here, upload, add file. If any object is uploaded here, this Lambda function is going to trigger. So how we can test whether it is got trigger and all? You go to CloudWatch. This is the most recent one. Go to CloudWatch at 9:58. It's 9:58, right? This triggered now. How it is triggered? Did I trigger manually? I uploaded some object to S3 bucket and this Lambda function triggered. So that is another question you can expect. How your Lambda function triggers. Okay. So you mentioned same thing. If we get any report to S3 bucket, you see here it's automatically added, whatever the one we configured there. If you remove, you go and you delete it, it deletes from your S3 bucket also. You go to S3 bucket, give a reload, it will delete from here also. So we can configure such type of, okay. So events that triggers this particular function. So there is a use case in AWS official documentation. I'll share the URL. Okay. So basically the use case is, there is an application. If you click a picture of any of the leaf or plant or sapling, right? So if you take a picture, if you upload that picture to your application, okay. So basically the picture upload to S3 bucket. Immediately this Lambda function will read that picture. It will trigger some artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. It tells what disease it is, and it is going to give suggestions how to fix a disease. Okay. So there is a use case, plant health analysis, AWS application, real-time plant health assessment, use computer vision to detect crop diseases. So here is a solution. So a recognition is creating. These are some images, sample images. If you want, you can give a try. What service is using here? S3. Okay. So whenever any object is uploaded here, the recognition is detecting it. It is processing. The code also available. Okay. So it is going to give the suggestions. So for such type of things also, we can. So basically here some machine learning is added. This is also some documentation. I'm not sure. This is not the official one, but this is the official one. So to perform such type of activities also, when something happen on S3, we are triggering some other things, right? So we can do that. Okay, I will share that. Just read it. Just read it if you have some time. Okay. So, and not only that, AWS Lambda use cases, common Lambda application types and use cases. And we even have case studies also. Go through this. Example 1 and the scenario. Amazon S3 pushes events and invoke Lambda function. That is what we discussed. AWS Lambda pulls event, Kinesis data stream triggers that. Okay. So next topic, something with Alexa skill set. Okay. So that is about triggers. Now, so, from this Lambda function, I want to access an S3 bucket. From this Lambda function, I want to access an S3 bucket. And, programmatically, I want to access, right? So I don't want to hard code any access key and secret access key. But I want to do some activity. So, or else this Lambda is going to generate a file. My code is going to generate a file. That file, I want to put it into an S3 bucket. So simply, I want to access S3 from Lambda. So how we can access securely? So for this Lambda, there is a role associated, right? So you go to that role, add the required permissions. So there is a policy for S3 read-only access or S3 full access. You add a policy to this Lambda. Currently, I told you one thing. The Lambda basically, it gets permission to only write logs. Okay. So, but along with that, add permissions, attach policies, and give a name. S3 full access policy. Now, what happened? This Lambda has a role just like EC2 instance. If you gave S3 full access role to EC2 instance, we can access all S3 buckets, right? Similar way, you have a role. To that role, you are giving all these policies. So now from Lambda also we can access these S3 full. If you want to tweak AWS, you go here, attach policy, give EC2 full access. So you can tweak EC2 instance also. Okay. So the permissions we will manage from this execution role. This is another thing you might get asked in your interview. Okay. And one more question, can we run a lambda function within a VPC? The answer is yes, we can. Currently, is it running within a VPC? While creating, did it ask us to choose any of the VPC? No, it's not asked us to choose any VPC. Why? Because it is running out of the VPC just like S3 and all. But we can move it to EC2. We can move it to VPC. Why we need to move it to VPC? If you want to access like, EC2 instance, or if you want to access databases that runs within the VPC, right? So for that we can. So click on edit. Now in what VPC you want to select? In what subnet you want to select the subnets, and what security group you want to select. Then scroll down, click on save, and it gives an error. So the reason is, whenever you are trying to run this lambda function within VPC, this lambda will try to create a network interface, but it don't have any permission to create network interfaces. That's the reason it won't run. So how to fix this error? So for that, you go to the role of your lambda function. There is a role available. Click on attach policy. Search here lambda VPC access execution role. Associate this. It's important bit. Then click on attach policy. Now, earlier it gave this error, right? But now if I go and if I click on save, it will create now. You see here? Now it is working. So this lambda function is now running within the VPC. Okay, if you got any question, can we run lambda within VPC? The answer should be yes, and mention the process. Okay. So now, to gain bit knowledge on this lambda, I'm going to share some lambda functions which we used. Okay. Total 3 lambda functions I have. I'm going to share that code actually. The first lambda function is, it will go and verify our volumes. If any volume is not attached to any of the EC2 instance, it picks that volume information and it sends an email. This code is in Python. Create a lambda function. You just change only couple of things. Okay. So one is, you just need to replace this SNS topic. Create an SNS topic. Okay. Create an SNS topic. Add your email as a subscriber. Create a lambda function. Okay. So then create a volume. Don't encrypt it. Don't attach it. Just create a volume, 1 GB volume or 2 GB volume. Now run the lambda function. When that lambda function runs, yeah, so that's me only. It's a live. Okay, don't test. So whenever we run this lambda function, it will go and it will verify whatever the volumes we have in EBS. It picks that volume. Okay, and it takes that volume information and it should send an email. Okay, this is, if volume is not encrypted, it should send an email. The below one, if volume is not attached state, it should send an email. Okay, so use same volume. You should get an email with the volume information. Just 2 things. One is, replace this SNS topic ARNs with appropriate ones. Okay, we used it in real environments. Same code. I'm sharing it here. The second one is, stop and start EC2 instances by using a lambda function. So you first take an EC2 instance, launch an EC2 instance, keep it in running state. Okay. Now create a lambda function with Python again. Python take 3.7. So this first create a policy for lambda. That policy should contain these permissions. One is logs permission. Second one is EC2 start permission and stop permissions on any EC2 instance. Okay. So create a role. This is the first, create a policy. Create a policy, add this JSON code. So then associate that policy to a role. Step 1 completed. Now go and create a Lambda function to perform stop EC2 instance. Create a Lambda function, simply copy paste this. Just replace these instance IDs. Just replace these instance IDs to whatever instance you have. Okay. So whenever you run this Lambda function, instance should stop automatically. This is to start EC2 instance. If you run this, once instance is stopped, you run this Lambda function, instance need to start automatically. One function to stop, one function to start. So how we can trigger this periodically? With the help of event bridge. You know, every day morning, 9 o'clock, it need to start, 6 p.m. it need to stop. So you configure event bridge for these. One event bridge rule for this, one rule for this. And there is a help video. I already made this stop and start. Refer this if you need some help. Okay. It's not so typical one. Easy only. You know VPC. You know role concept. Okay. I'm sharing the code. You know how to create a policy, how to create a role. So just test it. Test this. At least test the third one. If you don't want to test first and second, okay, if you felt a bit difficult, leave the first and second. Test the third one at least. And in interview, if you got any question, okay, are you using Lambda and for what purpose you're using? Mention same thing. Why? Because we use it. We use it for same purpose in real environments. Okay. So that is a third Lambda function. Right. So spare some time and deploy these Lambda functions, and it is free. It comes under free tier eligibility only. But after testing, make sure you delete it. Okay. So yeah, that is a Lambda session. So right now itself, I'm going to upload this to our Slack, the Lambda function. Where is that? This one, right? Okay. I have uploaded that Lambda function here. All right. Yeah. Just take that and deploy it. So any questions?
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Sir, in that push note, when you do the push, based on that pull, the automatically notification will come, sir, based on request and response. But push based also same, sir.
Sorry, for SQS it is automatic.
Not SQS, sir. Push based. Push. Starting చెప్పారు కదా సార్ స్టార్టింగ్
SNS అంటున్నారా?
yes sir,
SNS is just only one way traffic.
అదే సార్, that is a push means only one way కదా సార్?
Yes.
Okay sir, thanks. అదే కొంచెం కన్ఫ్యూజన్ గా ఉన్నది.
Yeah, push is only one way. Push is only one way, like, you know, it's just like receiving a message from customer care. You cannot reply. Even if you reply also, it won't reach anywhere. But poll means yes, there is some service wait for your messages.
Like synchronous or asynchronous?
Yes.
Okay sir, thank you.
Your voice is cranky.
Hello.
Yes.
And yesterday I posted in Slack.
Yeah, I have replied to your question. You still not able to get connected to your EC2 instances?
Yes.
So with any of the method,
While connecting to without any method, I'm connecting from my EC2 instance. It is not connected.
no, Mr. Linga. So basically my question is, so you are using browser method and you are not able to get connect. Have you tried by using PuTTY? Or have you tried
No,
by
I am using only
manage?
browser method.
No, just try. So basically if you are not able to get connected to your EC2 instance, now there might be an issue with your VPC. So do one thing, launch your EC2 instance, create a new VPC or create a default VPC, try to launch your EC2 instance within that VPC. Okay. So then try to get connected to it. Okay. So if browser method is not working, you have PuTTY. PuTTY is not working, you have MobaXterm. That is not working, you have OpenSSH. So end of the day, you try to get connected to it. One of the method. If nothing is working, that means it's a network issue. So you misconfigured something at VPC level. Okay. So just verify those things and just respond. I'll respond. I already responded to you yesterday itself, and you share your error. I'll respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Avinash, Ravi here.
Yes, Ravi.
So I just wanted to check regarding the Lambda function. So we have like different environments, right? So where we need to test the code in first the development and then moving on to production. And as you mentioned that this Lambda function is actually not a free to use. So in the production, if we use it, like if we are looking for the serverless and if we are using it in production, and if it's continuously running, wouldn't that be, accumulating charges on the AWS account?
No, basically when coming to pricing of this Lambda, so two things. One is you have how much code you have doesn't matter. Whenever the request comes, then only the code runs. How much time that code run? 500 milliseconds, 2 seconds, 10 seconds. So the 10 seconds only we need to pay. That is the first thing. Second thing is to run that code, it is going to use some resources, right? Okay. So how much memory is utilized to run that code? So these are the two things when coming to cost. Whether it is in dev environment or production environment or UAT environment, if no one is accessing our application, we are not going to get charged. No cost at all. If we are getting more requests, when more requests are coming, our code is going to run a number of the times. So how much the duration that code ran, how much memory is utilized for every single run, that is entirely going to calculate and we are going to get charged.
Okay. So in this scenario, so we use Lambda function only for minor usage, or even say, for instance, if we take a banking website that is running on Lambda function, is it really useful in terms of pricing?
I mean, that is too aggressive to go with serverless for banking. So we most of the times we depend on servers only for that.
Right. Okay.
All right. So just spare some time and try to deploy those Lambda functions, guys. It's a real ones only. So at least you talk about that in interview. Instead of saying no to a Lambda in interview, you mention say yes and you explain same things. Okay. So to gain that confidence, you spend some time and you deploy that. So yeah, tomorrow we'll discuss about CloudFormation. So then we will discuss about AWS organization and most of the important topics done. And containers are there. We'll talk about that. All right. So see you again tomorrow. Thank you, guys.